Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they hold up. We're continuing on our animation journey, and I'm continuing on with Andrew in Louisville, Kentucky, and Kyle in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Welcome,
You
fellas.
really shouldn't give away my location.
You should give away our. You want my address, my full address as well next time,
Yes,
Chase?
and Social
Yeah,
Security.
social security, credit card number, the VIN number on my car. I can give you all of that, but you got to fucking ask, okay?
It's a very much like you give us a little bit and we'll give you something, but we're not
Nope.
just going to tell you.
Nope, not in this day and age. All your information's out there now, and I want people to know which cities you are representing.
Not my ethnicity. My ethnicity is not out there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's not, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't
Very
be.
hard to tell what I am.
Cuban.
Yes. Damn it.
Now people know.
I mean,
Well, today's a big episode, isn't it, Andrew?
It's quite humongous, one might say. Quite large. Grand,
Very good.
if you will. Yeah.
There he goes. So we watched The Land Before Time, and this has probably been one of our most requested episodes to do. I'm looking forward to the numbers we do on this episode. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint. Before we get started, Kyle, tell us about your energy level using prehistoric terms.
So today's like, one of those days where you're one of the ancient lizards that's going after a prey item like an insect, and you're on a tree and you got that insect on your tongue and you're about to eat it and you get trapped in amber and you don't get to finish your last fucking meal and you're trapped forever, suspended in
Oh,
this
jeez.
for eternity. There you go.
Jeez, dark.
Yeah.
It fits. This
You asked.
episode. Great. I love that. Well, The Land Before Time. Andrew, as always, let's start with you. Yeah, because I know we're going to be talking about our childhood a lot on this episode. Let's just jump into it. How did this movie make you feel as a kid? Do you remember watching it? How did you remember watching it?
Oh, yeah. Dude, I watched this movie. I talked to my mom last night. I was like, hey, I just rented Land Before Time on YouTube. Feel free to watch it over the next 48 hours. And she's like, oh, gosh, that's a classic. I think you watched this close to 50 times as a kid. I watched it countless because as I was, watching it last night, dude, I knew the lines. Like, I hadn't watched this in 25 years, but I was able to fill in the blanks and know what came next and recognize scenes and moments and imagery that had been foreign to me forever, but it all came rushing back. So watching it as a child, though, I remember it being a journey. Like, obviously there are heavy moments, but I remember always being excited about the journey. I think the first time I watched it, I don't remember the first time, but I remember it just being a little dark and a little scary, but I kept wanting to see what was on that other side. And I think as I watched it more and more, it became second place. And I wouldn't say that I was numb to it. My dumb child brain didn't really take in all the soft, tender moments. And I just enjoyed it. I loved it. It was my favorite movie as a kid. I'm sure there are others that come close, but I think if I had to pick one movie that, encapsulated my childhood, and it'd be this one. So.
Yeah, that is totally fair. I think that's why a lot of people wanted us to do this one.
Yeah.
Kai, what about you? Did you remember Land Before Time? I'm sure you did, but how do you remember it?
This was one that I would watch with my friend Ben when I would go over to his house, and I do remember it being sad. I do remember crying when I watched it the first time because it was just, it was very, very, like Andrew said, there's some pretty heavy moments for children in this movie. It's not like overwhelming to the point where it shouldn't be a kid's movie. It very much is a children's movie, but I do remember watching this, and I believe my friend Ben had a stuffed animal of Littlefoot, I think, or something like that. I know he listens to the show, so he'll let me know at some point, but it was just one of those like really interesting. I don't want to call it's not a coming of age. It's more of a what to expect from life kind of movie. And I think, again, we talk a lot about like children's movies preparing children for things and teaching them lessons, very much like the Brave Little Toaster. This is one where you see what, like, they don't ever say that his mother dies in this movie. Spoiler. But it, and it's sad, and it kind of just pokes you the entire time. And there isn't really any uncertainty about it, but it is very, like, coming to that realization as a child, like, well, where's his mother at? Where does mom go? Why is he going with his mom? And you kind of have to, it kind of makes the child figure it out for themselves, which is a very poignant way of storytelling for children, I think. A lot of other animated films will hold, no pun intended, just hold their hand through all this stuff, lead them hand and foot through all of this. So this is what this means, and this is what this is, and yes, it's, they know it. Like, it's, how Up, they don't really show their say that his wife dies. It just shows the gravestone. It's kind of like that. That's even a little bit more heavy-handed than that one was. But I remember that being kind of like one of my greatest fears as a child was my parents dying. I don't know why I ever had that, but like, this was a movie that, shows you what death is. It shows you that there's something beyond death, both in the sense of his mother coming back and speaking to him in dreams or in hallucinations or whatever, but also that life and family exist beyond death, because we have our family we're born with, and we have the family that we choose. And that's another poignant thing. It teaches about friendship for children as well, and how important friendship is, and treating others with respect. And just like when Littlefoot has his couple moments with Sarah, at the end of the day, he does more for Sarah than Sarah does for him, but Sarah still helps when the time comes. You don't always have to be friends with people to have respect and to live a life and lead each other through some pretty hard stuff. So there's a lot of different themes in this that I remember from being a kid rather. And the biggest one was definitely like the death aspect of it, and the journey that they go on after that. Life goes on, kind of thing.
I feel like this movie was maybe the first foray, or like the first exposure to death for a lot of young kids. Honestly, I think I told you that, Chase, and just like in text, I was like, I think thinking back on this movie was the first time I witnessed and experienced a death in front of me, and the overwhelming feeling of grief and aloneness. Like, children don't usually, I wouldn't say usually, there are some that have to face that, but this movie, like I said, it was the first, a lot of times, the first exposure to those feelings. And I don't know, it's so powerful, and it's so important, because it's not like aggressive. It's not done in an immature way. It's done in the most like tender and precious way possible. But to be shown that and to work through that with the movie for young kids it's powerful. It sticks with you. It's lasting. And to have that as your first exposure just makes this movie so important for our childhood, at least for me specifically. And I'm sure you all might agree with that.
Yeah, it's pretty well said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will add to it. So this movie I watched a lot as a child. I think we all did. Like, I don't think that shocks anybody. Yeah. I had a Littlefoot stuffed animal I used to watch this movie with.
So I wasn't going crazy then. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't remember other toys, but I remember the stuffed animals because I think one of my friends had like a Sarah. We all had at least something from this movie.
Pretty sure I had a Ducky and a Littlefoot, so I'm right there with you.
And we should also say too, because like I was born in 91, Kyle, I think same year, right? 91? 90, and then Andrew, you were 93? 92. So this movie came out in 89? So it is kind of still 88. So it's still kind of in our childhood, and it's fresh enough to kind of carry over. I remember my first foray into death was watching, like, I think Bambi and the Fox and the Hound first.
Fox and the Hound is tough.
Yeah, the Fox and the Hound was my favorite Disney movie as a kid, and this is
Same.
not a Disney movie. And I watched that a lot and this at the same time. So I was really going through it emotionally.
Yep.
As a kid, I remember this movie being powerful. We'll get into this. I think it's even more powerful than I remember as a kid, because I think I just focused on the mother dying and that, like, how to deal with death was the main thing that I remember. And there's so much more in this than that. But it's very subtle. You know, as a kid, you're not going to pick up on. And it's a quick watch, too, so it's that perfect sweet spot for a child, about an hour, keep their attention. Before we move into the numbers and the blow-by-blow, we got to mention, A, the producers of this film, and 2, the director. So the producers of this film, which I totally either forgot or didn't even know, was Spielberg and George Lucas.
I didn't even know that they produced this until I saw the opening credits, and I was like, that is very interesting. There was a lot of stuff going on at that time, but this is pretty much post Indiana Jones and post Star Wars.
Yeah.
And this was like an interim period for the both of them. They hadn't really, because when did Return of the Jedi come out, Andrew? Was that
88, right?
That was 80. Return of the Jedi, I thought, was 84 or 85. That might have been an 88. Well, let me check real quickly.
I pretty they were done with all their big projects at this point. And
well, you probably would have had.
It was 83. It was 83. Return of the Jedi was 83. Yep.
Was Indiana Jones, like, that series was around this time, right? Like, at least in
For
the
sure,
Temple of Doom. So,
yes.
And I don't know what Spielberg would have been working on.
Temple of Doom was 84, and then
it was 86 or 7, wasn't it?
Raiders of the Lost Ark was 81, I think, and then hold on, I'm looking for the last one. Last Crusade was 89, so right around this.
So he's working on Last Crusade at the same time that they're working on this. And I think Spielberg had more of a hand in this movie, but this is the only movie outside of the Indiana Jones series where they co-produced.
Interesting.
The only other side project that they had together. And it spawned from Spielberg working on American Tail. Spielberg wanted to do a dinosaur animated film similar to The American Tail, which we should get to The American Tail at some point. That was another one of my favorites as a kid. And I think the gravity of that movie is probably going to hang large now as an adult. But we'll save that one for down the road. But Spielberg, he got with George Lucas. They wanted to do another animated movie for kids based on dinosaurs, and they got legendary director Don Bluth to come on board. Andrew, what do you know about Don Bluth?
I know he's still alive. He did All Dogs Go to Heaven. He's got a long list of. He did Anastasia. He did Titan AE. There's tons. He has a resume that's rather impressive.
Hall of Fame animator for sure.
Yeah.
If there is a Hall of Fame for that.
I mean, he also did Fox and the Hounds. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But he was part of Fox and the Hounds.
He was a part of a lot of those Disney movies that were very popular in the 60s and 70s. But the backstory to Don Bluth, for people that don't know, you've seen a Don Bluth movie and you've loved a Don Bluth movie, even if you don't recognize the name. We'll have Tyler on for an episode later on, hopefully doing another Don Bluth movie, and he'll go into some deep backstory on why Don Bluth is so legendary, but he is well known for his animation and even like a game changer with his animation. So Don Bluth started at Disney, and they did, like Andrew mentioned, The Fox and the Hound, those types of movies. And then Andrew will probably remember Disney went through a cycle where the magic was kind of lost in their animation. This was in the late 70s, going into the 80s. And they were restricting the animators a lot. And Don Bluth was one of their lead animators. So he did the bold thing and left the company in the 80s because he got tired of Disney just cracking down on them and preventing their stories from being told. Don Bluth's movies are known to be, I would say, not dark, but kind of teaching kids about the darker side of life. There's a lot of tragedy in his films. They're bleak, but
I think most of them always have like a peaceful resolution, but you got to go through some shit to get there.
Right.
But I think the thing that's important though is that it's teaching kids not about. I don't know if I agree with like the dark side of life. I think life has everything in it, dark, light, everything.
Yeah.
They're teaching about the realities of life.
That's
I think,
fair.
I think it's a better way to put it. I agree with you on that, Kyle.
But Bluth left, and then his first film outside of Disney was The Secret of Nim.
I was going to ask you. I felt like that would be one of his movies.
Yep.
Interesting.
It was his first movie outside of Disney. They launched it. It was a major success.
I will give you, Chase, that is a dark movie.
Yes.
Dark.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Secret of Nim, Don Bluth did that, and then does American Tail with Spielberg. So he does some crazy legendary animated movies just immediately off the bat. This caused Disney to get their shit together. Don Bluth started a renaissance for Disney because Disney's like, we're going to get left in the dust. So Disney stopped their restrictions as much, put more budget into the animation department, and then The Little Mermaid was born. And that kind of kicked off what we know in the 90s is, Pixar spawning from that, The Lion King, Hercules, Tarzan, which we mentioned, even Atlantis, we can kind of throw that in there. So we're kind of living in through another renaissance of Disney movies. But Don Bluth is responsible for that. His animation style is also gorgeous. Kyle,
Yeah.
I know you love to talk about the style of animation. What'd you think of Don Bluth's style in this movie?
This is it's like betwixt animation revolutions. I feel like I'm going to preface this by saying I know nothing about any of like animation, like time periods or anything, but it is very clear to me that like this is in between like older Disney style animation and newer like Lion King, Mulan, like that kind of like more crisp and more dynamic, but it's still like the color palette's very interesting. How they shade the characters at certain times is very interesting.
The characters always come off as like really bright with kind of a darker background, so they really pop. And then when he introduces an environmental hazard or something, then the environment pops too. So it's like it kind of almost becomes like a 3D dimension. I don't know what I'm talking about. Tyler, when you come on the show, please explain that to us.
Yeah, but so they do a lot. There's a lot of really good foreshadowing with the animation. I don't know if you guys realize this, but at one point they're sleeping in the footprint of the sharp tooth.
Sure, the sharp tooth. Yeah. Yep.
And like all of them were sleeping in it together, and all of them together defeat the sharp tooth. So there was a lot of. I mean, you could call it basic. I don't know if it is. As a child, you're not going to notice that, but as an adult, it's a little bit of foreshadowing. It's a little bit of in the moment and later on in the movie. But the style of animation it does make me think of The Secret of Nim a lot, especially with some of like the darker like landscapes with the trees, when they become the tar monster. Yeah, it is a much more, I think Secret of Nim is very scary and very dark. But this is a little bit more accessible, I think. And I would say that the animation style, it kind of stands alone in my mind. I don't really know of anything else that I can think of that is that style.
It's funny, Kyle, too, to piggyback off that. You say it's not as dark as The Secret of Nim. It's because Steven Spielberg cut 10 minutes from this movie from Don Bluth, yeah, because it was too dark.
Interesting.
Yep. And he changed an aspect of it when Sharktooth killed Littlefoot's mother. They were going to show it. And Steven Spielberg let's not do that. Let's do shadow effects instead because we don't want to traumatize the audience. But Don Bluth was known for going to that extra length because he's had several movies where producers come in and go, I don't know about that. Let's go ahead and cut that down a little bit. And that happened here in The Land Before Time.
Yeah. You could definitely see this taking a much darker route. But the animation style alone isn't it's very accessible to young children. We don't need to, I want to say this now. We don't really need to get into dinosaur, anatomy and this versus that when it comes to the realism of.
No, because a lot of these dinosaurs didn't exist at the same time.
Right. So we don't even need to kind of get into that. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But they do a good job of representing kids love dinosaurs. Everybody loves dinosaurs. So it's very. By the way, if you don't like dinosaurs, I don't believe that you're a human being. I'm just gonna put that out there. think he might be a skinwalker. But I really do think that this is it is an in-between animation style. It is a good animation style, but it is very simple. And I think it's because it's a simpler animation style that doesn't have a whole lot of like Atlantis would be like the opposite end of the spectrum, in my opinion. Like very complex. You can tell that there might have been some computer something or another involved in it. Is very, very sharp and edgy and cool. And this was much softer. And at times it was kind of grainy, but it would have worked really well on VHS. And it did.
And it did.
Yeah, and you could tell like Atlantis was definitely, a lot of it was using the newer age of like computer animation versus this is like all hand drawn and paints and rotoscoping and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but it's definitely just it fits what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be anything else than what it is. And I have no complaints with the animation, but I do think that when we talk about Titan AE and that movie, I know there was other things going on with that movie that we haven't talked about yet, but like it very much seemed like it should have been made 10 years later. The animations that they were trying to go for just didn't hit. Atlantis seems like it was made for the time that it was in, but it looks better now. And Land Before Time actually probably would look better on a VHS and doesn't really hold up as well on modern, streaming platforms, I would say, just from what I saw.
There were a few moments last night when characters were moving or there was like a transition scene where things went a little grainy. Did you all notice that? The resolution corrected itself, but there were moments where it was kind of, I don't want to say blurry, but it was grainy. And I think that's just the crossover from VHS, from tape to the digital realm that doesn't fully hold up. It doesn't detract from the situation, but my eye saw it. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, this is where it goes into to where streaming is the worst thing to happen to a lot of older films. Like,
for sure.
If you're in the Atlanta area, visit the Plaza Theater. They do a lot of 35 millimeter showings. They show films how they should be shown, and sometimes that's way more appealing to see like an older film that way than trying to watch it digitally, especially when they're cutting the aspect ratio down and things are out of frame. I don't know. Like, I grew up a Simpsons fan, so it's like a comfort show for me. But the way that they've chopped and screwed the frames digitally is sometimes just awful to watch. It's like, what have you done to our show? But I do want to, before we get the numbers from Andrew, there was one tragedy out of this film that I did not know about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys did. Yep. Did you know, Kyle, about the little girl that played Ducky? Do you know her backstory?
Judith Barcy. Say your name.
Judith Barcy. Do you know, Kyle?
No.
So,
Andrew,
Kyle,
take it away.
He had a very abusive father. He was a raging drunk alcoholic. He might have been, he was just mentally unstable. I don't want to say schizophrenic, but he was mentally unstable. This is a guy that abused his mother in front of her. Like, I'm talking to the point, like, he would like get drunk and like, I don't want to be too graphic, but like he would like pluck out mother's eyebrows and like hold her. Like, he was an awful human being. I don't know how he was allowed to be around, but I guess when you are in an abusive situation, it's hard to get out of. He was an awful human being. And Barcy had mentioned this to like her child actor friends, and had mentioned it in passing to other people, but I don't think people really understood the gravity of how dangerous her father was. And one night, drunk and fit, he shot the mom, I believe, in bed, and then shot little Judith while she was sleeping, and then killed himself, a murder-suicide.
Wow. So, and it was while this film was being finished, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from what I read, too, that he had been abusing both of them physically, and at one point, Judith had mentioned they had like a child therapist on one of the sets. She mentioned that he had thrown pots at her. And then that's when they got involved, and they finally talked the mother into leaving him, and they were getting ready to leave. And I think he found out about it, and in his drunken rage, killed them both and killed himself as well.
Yeah,
it's horrible. And that like
terribly tragic.
When I read that, because like I said, I didn't know, and I feel like a lot of people did, and I didn't. But like when I read that, it left a sinking feeling in me, especially watching this performance on like because she was a really talented voice actor.
Yeah, she had done other stuff and was gonna.
She was
be
in
doing
Jaws Revenge, which I won't hold that against her, but.
She was gonna have a career, like she was that talented. And I didn't know the details of her death until I really looked it up last night. I just knew that she had died. I thought maybe it was like a car accident or something, but the levels to this just make it that much more brutal.
Only 10 years old too. Like
only 10, yeah.
Sucks,
she had just turned 10, I believe. So
well,
yeah, that's another layer to this super emotional movie.
Yeah.
So
here we go.
Yeah.
Andrew, how did this movie do in theaters though?
So it had a budget of about 12 million. Domestic opening the first week was 7.5 million. Domestic gross was right around like 49 million. Internationally, 36 altogether, for about 85 million altogether. So
what'd you say the budget was again?
12 million.
12 million.
Well,
yeah.
12.3 million. So you take that away, you're at what, 70, 71 and a half, 72 million altogether. For 88, that doesn't seem that bad, especially for a family animated movie.
Plus the VHS sales after that, because a lot of movies made their profit off VHS sales in the 80s. That was a big thing.
I know we all had those VHSs.
The plush toys. This movie made its money.
It made its money.
And spawned sequels. We got sequels after that.
Oh, gosh, we got to talk about. There's so many. There's like, what, like 13? 12 or 13, something like that? Yeah, I think I've only seen up to like 5 or 6. I remember liking the second one a lot, and even the third. I think after that it gets a bit fuzzy.
Well, some
I
kids
was watching last night.
Some kids in our generation started with the second one.
They did, yeah. I was waiting because it's been so long. I think I was waiting in my mind for some moments of 2 to pop out. I was like, oh wait, no, that's a different film. And it was running together because I think if I went back and watched 2 and probably 3, I would remember it as well. Definitely in the rotation. I remember them all being worthwhile. I'd be curious to see if some of the sequels are worth a darn, but they're there. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I wonder if they're as bleak or as hard as heavy. I guess heavy's a better word.
I remember the second one being a little scary.
Yeah, I just remember this one.
I'd be curious to maybe some time we visit the second one just because I think it holds weight. So be curious.
Well, let's dive into it. Kyle, take us away. Where does this movie start and begin?
It starts and begins going. We're clearly underwater, and this is kind of where Andrew points comes in about like the graininess of it. It's kind of hard to tell at first what was going on because it was very blurry, very grainy, and the animation style that they chose to open this film with, I was like, is there something wrong with my TV? But then I was like, oh, they're underwater. Okay, understood. And it's on some kind of unknown aquatic. I don't want to call it a dinosaur. It might be some kind of creature that's maybe made up, probably. But it's
kind of was tadpole-ish.
Tadpole with like a fin on the back of it, with like 2 buggy eyes on it, semi-sentient looking eyes, and it was chasing after some kind of like protozoa or some. I don't know. So I don't know the scale of these things, but it's going around trying to catch this little thing to eat. And this is a theme that you're going to see a lot in this movie is eating and like the circle of life and food and what that means. And they do it very well. It's very well done. But they immediately start with that theme. And
it's the life cycle. They're doing a prelude to the whole film here. They're doing a whole life cycle in front of you, birth to death kind of situation between these animals. I wrote down in my notes, I was like, this could be a short film in itself, this opening credits. And that is, it's a beautiful thing because as a kid, I didn't catch it. I'm just thinking this is the way we open this movie. Like you're introducing this world. But as an adult, you see he's telling you the story he's about to unfold in front of your eyes.
It's very well done.
And then where do we go from there once we get through the life cycle phase?
We start going into another life cycle phase. So we see animals hatching, and the narrator opens up into talking about where we are with this part of the world right now, that there's almost to essentially say like there's the weather, the climate is changing in some way, so that like they need to these different groups of animals. There's the leaf eaters and there's the meat eaters. There's the flat tooth and the sharp tooths, and that's if we're trying to give them credit where credit's due. That's a pretty good way to describe most animal species that are vertebrates that have evolved for billions of years. Like, yeah, okay, I get where you're going for sure. Cool. It is oversimplified, but it needs to be for a child, so I'll let him slide with that.
Yeah.
But we're watching hatchlings start to hatch, and was it a triceratops that we start with, or was it? It wasn't. We didn't start with Littlefoot. We started with.
I think it was Sarah. I'm pretty sure it was Sarah. And
spelled
she had
weird.
That little scene where she couldn't get out of her shell, but she was still running into her dad's forehead, and it kind of set the tone for who this little character is.
Yeah,
she's very stubborn. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, put it that way. Yeah, that's putting it lightly.
We're seeing all of our main characters hatch from their eggs or this, that, and the other, except Petrie. We don't see him actually hatch from the egg, but he's the only one.
Yeah, we understand that's what's happening.
And go ahead.
Their narrator at this point is telling us, like, well, they're running out of food, so they need to start making their way, like, west. This was during the time the continents, the tectonic plates were shifting. And again, very basic overview. They do a good job. They don't get bogged down in specifics. It's well done, but they're teaching very basic stuff about what
the continental divide, essentially, and changing of the climates because of that, and it's almost like a big reset of the Earth that's implied.
Because this would have been, Kyle, help me out here, you're the historian, so they're playing with the transition from the Cretaceous period to the Jurassic period, or do I have that backwards?
I don't know, because I used to know that stuff, but that I don't remember, like, the different periods. But I will just, like Andrew said, like, a lot of these animals, based off what we can see and what they're purported to be, they probably did not exist at the same time.
No,
like
definitely not.
They definitely didn't exist at the same time. So, but it is like going through, like, you know, when we're talking about dinosaurs and we're talking about evolution, and by the way, if you don't believe in evolution, you should go fuck yourself up a tree.
Piss up a rope.
Don't forget it. But these giant time periods that we're talking about, they do a good job of kind of condensing things down, because what they're talking about, like the tectonic plates shifting and like continents drifting apart, happened over millions and millions of years, which is already unfathomable to us to think about. Us as a species has been around for, as we know it, probably around 100,000 years. Most of that history has been lost up until the last about 10,000 years. If you think about it, like the pyramids are about 4,000 years old. So that's before the time of Christ. That's before a lot of, and that's like, you know, during that time frame, there were still animals dying out from the Ice Age 4,000 years ago. It's incomprehensible to think that's 10,000 years. We've been around for 100,000 years. That's a tenth of a million years. And these time periods happened over hundreds of millions of years, tens of millions of years. We cannot comprehend that kind of time space. So they do a good job of like condensing it down and talking about because there were many great extinction events that happened. And some of them led to mass die-outs over time. Some of them led to immediate extinctions of most life on Earth. It just depends on which one you're talking about, because there's quite a few of them that have happened. So I think what they're trying to get at here is that this story takes place during one of those times where it was a more drawn out extinction event, where volcanoes were erupting more, things were blocking the atmosphere, causing greenhouse gases to accumulate and lead to greater warming of climates, different animals having food sources or not having food sources based off the climate that they're in. So simplified, pretty good. We don't need to get too far into it, but yeah, Chase, they're definitely trying to hit on some of those like in betwixt periods in our Earth's history.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. They're just trying to because they're not worried about getting all the facts straight. They're just trying to teach. I mean, because the kids that are watching this are super young.
Doesn't matter.
They don't
Like,
need
it
those
doesn't
types
really
of
matter.
details, but this is something that piqued our interest as kids and caused us to actually learn about the dinosaurs and their history. So what we're getting now is we're getting all of our main characters starting to alive themselves, I guess.
Oh yeah.
They're starting to wonder with their families, and it's really quick from birth to being I guess in this era, there's like kids, like probably like the equivalent of an 8 or 9-year-old maybe. And Littlefoot is the last one to be birthed, and we're seeing the world through his eyes, and we're learning it from his family. Although there's going to be other characters that get involved, he is the main character here. We're learning from his mother and his grandparents that the food sources are scarce, and they're going to have
a famine essentially.
Right. There's no.
You got to relocate.
It's a very hard. I mean, Don Bluth does a good job with the environments because they're very harsh, and you can feel the heat and the dryness in every scene. Everything's just kind of this red-orange palette. The sun's beating down. There's no green.
There's some green he throws in there, like green, like smoke, almost like a toxic element to it.
Yes,
they gotta get the hell out.
Yeah, like he makes the environment look uncomfortable. I was super uncomfortable watching them like lay in this environment or sleep, eat, whatever they were doing. And Littlefoot he is a very bright-eyed character. How would you put him, Andrew?
Kind, curious, very innocent.
Yes, innocent is a good word for it.
Yeah.
And so they're making this big journey to, what was it, the Great Valley? Is that what they call it? The Great Valley.
They're going to the Great Valley.
And the Great Valley, I want to say this, the Great Valley is something they don't really know about. They're going off faith alone that it exists out there in the West.
Littlefoot's like, what is the Great Valley? And the mom is like, it's a wonderful place filled with lush greenery and yada yada. He's like, well, have you seen it? And she's like, no. He's like, well, how do you know it's real? And she's like, there are some things that you have to rely on your heart to believe in, and definitely some themes there. But like you said, it's based on faith. It's based on trust.
Absolutely.
They're going in blind.
And so this set the tone for me as an adult. I was like, oh, I see. Because to me, the metaphor he's working with here is the Great Valley is the afterlife. And what we're getting on this journey is the life cycle from these characters. And we'll dive into it on each step of the way.
Yeah.
But we started with birth. We're all slowly heading towards the afterlife. And that kind of just hit me immediately. I was like, oh, shit, I'm in for a journey here. But
you could say there is some religious symbolism there, not necessarily a specific religion, but a thought process or a philosophy for sure.
Yeah.
From the very start.
An afterlife that's better than the life you're living. That's based in every religion out there.
Correct.
There are some religious undertones, but there's no, it's not a religious film. But the characters start mingling together. Sarah's a complete asshole the entire time. Her and Littlefoot start playing with each other. She's a little aggressive with him, and then
she's gonna freaking flatten him. And then Sarah's dad and Littlefoot's mom come in and break it up. And I remember this was a poignant line. Sarah's dad says something to the effect of, "Three horns don't associate with long necks."
Yeah, so now we're getting the racial.
But yes, there's definitely racial segregation type themes here.
I never picked up on that as a kid, and now, as an adult,
it was obvious.
Yeah, it didn't make any. It didn't make any sense as a kid because I'm like, they're both dinosaurs. Why don't they get to play with each other? And now I'm like,
this is where some deeper themes of nature versus nurture and what that does to children. And children really only know what we teach them, and it's very clear that if you have hate in your heart and you teach that to your child's going to have hate in their heart too. And they're also going to carry the traits that you give them as a parent. So Sarah is a direct product of her family. And I think that's also a very important theme of this movie. There's a lot of themes. There's a lot of faith, a lot of life cycle, a lot of nature versus nurture, a lot of some racial overtones here. And honestly, we could get a lot deeper because there's a lot of there's a lot of overtones to this movie that we see immediately right now in our society that I don't think we want to get political with. But if you watch this movie, just think about what Sarah is, and Sarah is a Karen. She should be called Karen
Yeah.
because she just all she does is complain. There's a problem with everything. There's a problem with people trying to help her. There's a problem when she gets helped. She's never satisfied unless she is the one who's thought of everything. And even then, it's got to be something else, somebody else's problem when she doesn't succeed or get to the point that she's at. And that's a huge problem in our society right now on both sides of the political aisle. Like, don't kid yourself if you think that's one person or another. It's pot, kettle, kettle, pot kind of thing. And
It's just a human trait that's been there for a long time.
Forever.
Long time, but it's being exploited now. And
I will say, though, even though those negative attributes are there and they are there with other people, Sarah especially, this movie doesn't like ostracize her or make it seem like she isn't worthwhile. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Good or bad, she is worthwhile. Everyone is worthwhile. And you just have to embrace the good with the bad, which is, again, a very hunky-dory type theme. But, like, we lose that innocent thinking as we get older and kind of forget that we're all in this together, whether, you like the way someone acts or not. There's worth to every single person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it sounds so cliche and so childish, but, like, it's true.
Right.
It is true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good way to put it. And Sarah is an obnoxious asshole, but we all know an obnoxious asshole in our lives. It's not like we're introducing something to a kid that's unrealistic, because she still has some good qualities, as we'll discuss later on, that kind of peek through. I think they could have done a little bit of better job of showing those to make her more well-rounded, because at the end of the day, like, I just thought she was an asshole that never really learned her lesson. She does one good thing in this whole movie and then goes back to how she was. She's just very stubborn and difficult to deal with, but that's just who Sarah is.
Still necessary for the process. Still necessary for the process.
She's cut out to be a CFO of a big, like, packing company or something. Yeah. So moving forward, these characters, there's not a lot of this stuff is happening visually, and we can kind of gloss over a lot of it. But at one point, Littlefoot and Sarah are playing again, and they're playing in this, like, kind of like mudded swamp area, I think. And all of a sudden they awaken a T-Rex.
Sharptooth.
Yeah,
Sharptooth.
Sharptooth. Yeah, it's actually an adorable name to make. But and they've been warned about Sharptooth and coming after them, and so they somehow escape. We're following a bunch of herbivores around, so we don't have any of the carnivores. It's just the Sharptooth is the first one that's being introduced. He starts chasing the families, trying to eat whatever's in sight. He doesn't have any dialogue or anything. He's just a mindless eating machine. And I think he's a good representation of death in this movie. Like, that's kind of what he is. He doesn't exist in their world almost. He's almost just kind of like the shadowing of death. And while they're in this battle, there's this giant earthquake. So we're seeing the continental plates shift. So families are starting to get separated on different land masses. There's a huge chasm that swallows a bunch of dinosaurs whole. Like, there's a lot of death in this scene.
Didn't make it as graphic as they could have, but
I'm sure that 10-minute cut, though, I'm sure that 10-minute cut has some graphic shit in it.
Yeah.
But they do the divide. Families are getting separated. And at one point, Sharptooth is fighting Littlefoot's mom. Littlefoot's mom's trying to defend him. Littlefoot is, like, at one point, him and Sarah are on a slab of rock as it's going down into this giant chasm. And I think it's Littlefoot's mom or grandmother that saves them, or somehow.
I think it's their mom, because I think in the second movie his grandparents are still alive.
Yes. So his mom pulls him out. Sharptooth ended up fighting his mom too. It's like a lot's going on at once, and you don't see it, but you see the shadows on some rock, which I actually think is more effective than actually showing it. It was a little bit, like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to censor it for the children, but it made it like your imagination's your worst enemy sometimes. And so actually seeing the shadows on the rock was a little bit more jarring to me. And Sharktooth falls into the chasm. You have Littlefoot's mom, and she ended up getting mortally wounded. And then the rest of Littlefoot's family separated on the other chasm. So in this 10-minute scene, just all hell broke loose. This is the saddest point in the movie, but we watch Littlefoot as he's talking to his mom.
Mom, get up. We got to get to the Great Valley.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Littlefoot, I don't think I can.
You're going to have to do it on your own.
The eyes start welling, and the score behind it.
You talking about me or you?
Both. We were both crying, right?
I'm not afraid to admit it, guys. I shed some tears during this one, but
I probably cried 3 or 4 times. But this scene is so tender and sad because Littlefoot is not really aware of what's happening, and reality just kind of hits him square in the face in a harsh way. And again, as we said, this was some kid's first exposure to a death. And the idea of losing your mom at the age of 3 or 4, God, hell, the idea of losing your mom now is still even hard to grapple with, because back then it was young and new, and the idea of that happening was so foreign and scary. But watching it when you're 33, you're like, holy shit, I'm closer and closer to losing my loved one. So it's just tough all the way around.
Yeah.
It's just because you put on that lens of innocence, and it's all fleeting. It's all short. This can happen at any moment.
And I want to make mention that at one point during the opening scene, his mom had given him what she called a tree star. It's basically a leaf from this tree, and the tree was there was nothing on it but this one leaf, and that's the symbol of what they're aiming for. Yeah. It was a star. So
it was shaped like a star, yep.
So I'm wondering if we're hitting any type of Jewish themes there. I don't know. Like I was thinking about
there's any
I don't want to get are we looking at Holocaust, hunting down? I don't know. I didn't get anything else after this, but I was kind of like, oh shit, are we setting something up? Because American Tail has a lot of that World War II Holocaust themes in it. It's pretty dark, and I thought maybe we were going to get it here coming up, and I don't think we ended up getting anything. But it is a star.
This tree star does not have the same number of triangles or points.
It wouldn't, but
I don't know. Maybe it has something. I don't know. I didn't take it that is all.
I didn't.
Saw it as a leaf, a precious leaf.
I didn't until knowing the backstory with Spielberg and American Tail, and right off of that, and it made me just wonder. But I agree with you. I don't really think anything came out of it, but it's just a star, which is very symbolic of faith, heavens, all that other stuff. So,
of course.
And all that's left are the kids that were hatched. You get introduced to the Ducky character. Sarah and Littlefoot are at odds with each other.
They have a little meeting, and Sarah's like, I'm going to go my own way. And he's like, all right, I'll see you around. And she just wanders
falls
off.
Down the chasm.
That's it. Yep, that's right.
Which, this is the one point I was like, what the fuck? Because she falls down the chasm slowly, through steep stairs, and she ends up at the bottom of it and wakes up Sharptooth, who fell earlier hundreds of feet and onto his own back and hit by rocks, and yet somehow she's able to her stubbornness of her anger comes out, and she starts ramming Sharptooth, and it wakes him up. And then she scurries out of there because she's also a coward. She tries to act tough.
Even though she tries to act tough, but she's deathly afraid.
So Littlefoot is also sulking the entire time. We get introduced to Petrie, right, with the birds and the cherries, which I thought was a little cute moment.
Yeah. That wasn't Petrie. That was just a separate situation where these little baby pterodactyls were arguing over a cherry or a fruit, and the one lizard type dinosaur comes up and snatches away, but then the mother surprises all of them with their individual fruit, and then they're all different colors, these pterodactyls. I think it was blue one of the 6 or 7 sees despondent Littlefoot and tries to offer him that fruit, but it doesn't move the needle. He is just grief stricken.
Yep, you're hitting grief
alone,
now.
Afraid.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think Ducky appears shortly after this, and then we run into Petrie in some random tree. I don't exactly remember the exact moment, but we get introduced to both of them.
Because Littlefoot's trying to eat the tree, and
yes, that's right.
Like, you can't eat a talking tree.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
And then
Petrie can't fly. Petrie like falls, and he falls from the tree. And they're like, "Why can't you fly?"
Even though they refer to him as a flyer. You're a flyer. Why can't you fly? And you can tell he's a little frail and like timid. It's a funny character, Petrie.
Almost with a Russian accent too.
Kind of.
Something, yeah.
Something unique.
But so we're establishing all of our characters, and Littlefoot's gonna like lead them to the Great Valley. Petrie and Ducky are just on board. They're happy to have somebody with them. Sarah.
Ducky's very gung-ho and just very happy-go-lucky. She's not a nuisance to have around by any means. But yes, then Sarah happens to run into him. I don't remember I think this is a moment where they were running full steam ahead and ran into like an old skeleton. I'm sure someone could explain it better to me, but they were running back down the ledge, and then they run into Sarah. And she's like, "Oh, hey, guess what, guys? I just happened to run into the sharp tooth." And they're like, "Nuh-uh." And she was like, "Yeah, I awakened it from its slumber. Look at me." When
put all of our lives in jeopardy, is what she's saying.
Yeah, instead of warning, she's bragging about how she discovered this giant predator that could easily wipe them out. But it opened the door for what is to come.
Yeah. And there's not a whole lot happening. This film is very visual. There's not a lot of dialogue. The dialogue is very kid-friendly dialogue. So
there's a moment that we need to discuss that I think we skipped over. This is before they all kind of conjoin together. And this is a very sad moment. Littlefoot's kind of wandering alone, and he sees his shadow on the edge of this cliff. And him being further away, it looks very large. And he's like, "Oh, there's my mom. There she is." And he runs up and he starts talking, "Mom, found you. Let's get a move on." And as he gets closer and closer, the shadow shrinks, and then he realizes that God, his mom really is gone. And holy hell, does that hit? Like,
yeah, it's a reminder too of your parents, your family are in you the whole time, like your genetics.
Yes, they're there.
Yeah, so another theme that we're checking the box on in one scene, just masterfully delivered in one 30-second scene.
Yeah,
does a lot more than what most modern movies can do in 2 and 3 hours.
Yeah. And you were just talking about, the dialogue is fairly childish and whatnot, and it is, but scenes and depictions like that say so much more than just words alone.
Yes, that's what I'm saying with this is a visual movie. It's hard for us to do it justice. You have to see it to understand what we're talking about. And I'm sure most people will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that scene." It hits just as hard when you watch it again as an adult. But yeah, that's a good scene to bring up, Andrew. And they're kind of making their way through this world. Sharptooth shows up a couple of times, doesn't he?
Yeah, we're not there yet. We get introduced to another character. We can't forget about Spike.
Yeah, we get introduced to Spike.
I think Ducky gets separated somehow. She finds like a tall assortment of grass, and in the middle there's an egg that's about to hatch. And she's like, "Oh, come on, you're holding yourself back." And she peels back the egg, and then Spike's born. And he's a spike tail. He's this big, lumbering, slow moving, doesn't speak, but you can tell he's lovable and wants to be around, wants to be with the crew. And he is brought in. So we got 5 characters: Sarah, Littlefoot, now Spike. He doesn't speak, but he's big, lumbering, and lovable. Very easygoing.
Yes, and ends up being a great companion for them and he just helps. And all he wants to do is eat all the time.
Yeah.
Which I think they're all starving at this point. During the night, they end up all together. Sarah still being a bitch. She's refusing to be around them. They're going to the same place on the same trail, and she's trying to be as opposite of them as she can be because she doesn't need help. And she blames Littlefoot for being separated from her family. And the whole Sharptooth thing, even though it was her that got started that whole thing, so she can't take blame. But they end up finding a tree with some leaves on it, and through their teamwork, Spike helping the most and trying to get Petrie to fly up there, and he's just timid, but he's still. I mean, they even do show Petrie like conquering his fears of heights, which is interesting for a flying animal.
Yes.
And he reaches up and knocks all the leaves down, and they're like, "Come on, Sarah, do you want some leaves? Or you want some food? We found some food." And Sarah's like, "No, I don't need your help. I'll get my own." And she starts ramming a separate tree that has no leaves on it. And Littlefoot just throws leaves to make it look like she got him herself. And then she starts talking shit again.
Yep.
And Littlefoot just walks away, knowing that things won't change with her. And Sarah goes and lays down on, like, they're all trying to sleep for the night. And Sarah's, like, shivering and whatnot. And I think it's Spike that goes over there first and lays next to her.
It was Ducky. And then Petrie and Spike were right behind. And at this point, that's when she's alone and shivering. She's like, oh, what the hell? I need these people. Might as well go join the game.
And they're all, like, cuddling together.
Yes.
And then Littlefoot's kind of having a moment about his family again. And he goes and lays, and I think this is the point where he lays in the sharp tooth footprint. And
that's where he was.
It cuts back to the others, and they're, like, snoring. So Ducky gets up and goes and lays next to Littlefoot. And then they all migrate and go lay next to Littlefoot.
Yeah.
And then this is their first moment of, like, not bonding because all of them have bonded, but this is the first time we see Sarah, like, understanding that she needs people in her life to accomplish what she needs to.
She has a breaking moment where she was like, all right, I need some togetherness. I can't do this all.
You have to survive with others. And so what happens next, Andrew, after they wake up the next day?
Oh, they get awoken by the shark tooth. They hear some, like, screaming and grunting and some thuds, and they have to start running. Like, they are in the dire straits. You know, it's their life if they don't make a move for it. So they get to going. They get through this little pass where the shark tooth gets stuck. I can only get his little muzzle through, but they know that it's not the end. I think this is the time when they try to corner the sharp tooth themselves. Like, they try to rise up. Am I correct in that? This is where they try to take the guy out. I don't know. They get to a little point where there's they go through, like, a whole, like, underground section. I don't exactly remember, but they end up in this blue watering hole that's really deep, and they know the sharp tooth is around. And Littlefoot has this idea to kill the damn thing.
And he mentions that his arms are so small he can't swim.
Yeah, which is brutal. Taking out your enemies by literally murdering them. That is
murdering them by drowning them, like, which is even more brutal.
That is the animal way. There's nothing soft or tender about it. Just kind of
Littlefoot just morphs into John Wick and pulls out 2 Uzis and starts running up the wall. Or did you guys watch that version? Did I get a different version?
No, I saw that version, and then he snaps the neck. Yeah. It's easy peasy.
But essentially here, they get the T-Rex to the top of the cliff where there's, like, a loose boulder, and all of them, with Sarah's final effort, hits the boulder, knocks the T-Rex down into the watering hole, and he drowns. And they thought they lost Petrie because Petrie went with him as he fell and plummeted down to the water below. But and they had a tender moment where they're like, oh, we lost Petrie, and they start crying and mention how much they loved him as a friend. But then he comes out of nowhere up the side of the cliff because a few minutes earlier he had finally learned how to fly. Seems that he made it just by the nick of it. But
yeah, he flew out of the watering hole.
Yeah, and clings on the side of the cliff and climbs his way up. That's what it's implied. But he is safe and sound, not dead, and they're still a good team of 5, and they are kind of on the last leg of things here.
Yeah, because, this is it.
This might be out of order, but I'm pretty sure this is when they start going past the, fiery mountains, or the angry mountains, as the mom described them, which is the volcanoes.
There's that there's, like, a valley, and then there's footprints on the bottom of the valley.
Yeah.
And Littlefoot's like, we got to go this way. And Sarah's like, I'm not going that way. I'm going to take the easy way this time.
Yeah.
And, like, we can't go that way because this isn't the way that my mother said. And he's like, well, your mother
with a flat head.
It was a stupid long head, flat head, like whatever.
Long neck.
and insults his.
She called her a flathead. She calls her a flathead, like to his face. And I mean, again, racial slur, whatever you want to call it, it's akin to that. But they have a fight, they have a tussle, and they go their separate ways. Littlefoot takes the high ground. Sarah takes the low ground, the easier path, and everyone seems to follow Sarah because they're tired.
And they start to think that Littlefoot is leading them the wrong way. So they start following Sarah, and this is where Littlefoot thinks he's gone the wrong way and made the wrong choice. But
he perseveres. He keeps going the way that he intends. But again, he's high, they're low. He starts hearing screams, and turns out that those four are pretty much like trapped by like lava or like magma. Lava or magma? Which one is it, Kyle? Is magma inside? Lava's outside, so it would be lava, correct?
I think lava is outside, magma is inside.
Yeah, so there is lava on the ground, and a lot of them are all trapped, and Littlefoot has to deviate from his path to come back to save them and get them out of a fiery hell, if you will.
Yeah, each of them has their own tribulation they're going through that Littlefoot helps save them from, and it culminates in Petrie being stuck in the tar.
That's another part, yeah.
I'm glad that we're not going off of realism, because all those animals would have fucking died if they got in the tar.
Yeah.
But whatever. But they essentially, each one of them trying to get to Petrie when all of them work together. But I don't remember if this is the point where Sarah doesn't help them or she does help them.
She ends up getting cornered, I think, by some other predators, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, because that's what leads to this point. You're right. So Sarah doesn't even help. She's self-serving completely.
Well, she's backed into another corner by she's got her own shit she's dealing with.
The pachycephalosauruses, and she's like, oh no. But they all work to save Petrie, including Ducky, who takes Petrie's place in the tar, and then Petrie gets her out, and then they all get out, and then Sarah is cornered, like Chase is saying, and then all of a sudden, these pachycephalosauruses just go oh, something's in here, whoa, and they scurry away because there's a giant monster, weird looking monster, and she's like, get away from me, get away, and it picks her up and goes why are you picking me up? And then it's our dynamic team. They came to rescue Sarah, and after that, Sarah kind of takes a second and goes curls up and cries. The narrator's like, Sarah knew she went the wrong way. I was like, yeah,
it's so funny. I actually laughed at that.
Yeah, same. We got to make that known for the kids. Sometimes the easy way isn't the best way. Shortcuts don't always lead to a finish line.
Pride goes before the fall.
Yep. So I thought that was a very good lesson to teach youngins.
Yeah, and now they're following Littlefoot again, and is this the point where he actually finds the Great Valley? I think it is.
Yeah,
right?
At the very end, his mother talks about the long neck rock, or the rock that looks like the long neck, and you're right there, and he sees it. And at this point, he has another moment where his mother visits him, and these cloud formations that are shaped like her, kind of come down to the earth and lead him forward to this path, and he just follows after it with fervor and eagerness because he knows he's near the end. And he goes past the statue, through a little cave, and then sure enough, right there is the Great Valley. It's beautiful, it's green. You see all these dinosaurs at the base that are seemingly happy and healthy, and he calls after his friends behind him. They catch up, and
all their families are there. It's
I want to say something before we move on. Great art is usually never made, it's stolen. So I would like to point out that The Lion King came out after this, but they stole a pivotal moment. The whole, I see my dead parents' face in the clouds, and they are going to talk to me and show me the way forward.
Yes.
Lifted from the movie.
That's a good point, because I didn't even think about that until you
put two and two together either.
But holy shit, that's a direct steal.
Very direct.
You could also look at it too as the light, the way it illuminates the Great Valley in this movie is the same thing that they use the light to show Simba what he rules over in the kingdom. So that's probably lifted too.
Yeah.
But again, Disney was pretty pissed at Don Bluth for making great movies and forcing them to put money in their animation department. I'm sure a lot was stolen.
Yeah, and I'm sure some people would argue that
Shame on you, Disney.
These two moments happen at different times in both of those movies. This is literally at the end of the movie in Land Before Time, and the other instance in the Lion King is before he goes back to battle Scar for his land that he is rightfully king of, the Hamlet moment. So it is. I mean, like, yeah, it's stolen, but without. Again, we talk about walking before running. Land Before Time walked so Disney could run, and there you go. That's my 2 bits with that.
Yeah. Same thing with music. It happens. Like everyone's influenced by something.
Yep. So
I gotta say, we talk about the music. We haven't really touched on it, but the score for this movie is incredible.
Yes.
Oh my God! Like it sends you. It completely transports you. James Horner, the guy that wrote this, he deserves all the flowers. I mean, the main little theme when they're out and prancing around, going from one place to the other, that one is ingrained in my memory. Littlefoot's mother's theme, when she's dying or when she comes to visit him, that one just pulls at my heartstrings. And just, the score from start to finish, I think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like it holds up to the truest sense of holding up.
It's a very mature score. There's no whimsy to it at all. Like, which
Nothing.
is, and I mean that in a good way, because it's not prevalent in this movie the whole time, which I appreciate.
Nope.
So you don't have a score bearing down on you, but it just highlights the deeper.
It complements everything.
Yes.
Also not trying to be what it is. It's very much like what you see is what you get, and they are doing some environment painting when the little pterodactyl babies are flying. They're using like woodwinds and stuff to like mimic that, and like there's a lot of like good but just very simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated kind of stuff. And this is another reason why we're in a very shitty era for movies in general, is because there's no more
animated movies, especially.
Nope. Especially no.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's just like they're either going to use like a soundtrack, or they're going to use some kind of like, electronically made score that is just completely devoid of any kind of creativity, because directors hate it when people hum the tune of the movie instead of quote the movie. Yep. That old adage.
Well, and like movies now have to be 4 hours long to tell their story, and this one told a more effective story in
an hour and 9 minutes.
Yeah, like that's why it's so short for us to do this blow by blow. It's very visual. There's not a whole lot of dialogue. The dialogue's very simple, it's a kid's movie. It needs to be simple, but it's an hour and 9 minutes. I don't even think it's an hour and 9 minutes. I think that's hour and 9 with the credits.
Probably with the credits.
Yeah, it flies through, and it tells a very effective, multi-layered story, and it does it in an hour. Like, and I'm not one of those that's like arguing that we need shorter movies, but if your movie's 3 or 4 hours long, I don't care how many Oscars you win. It's like, could you have told it shorter? That's always been a big thing for me. I read that in like a cinematography book one time. Just how can you tell your story visually without having to add a lot of dialogue?
Yeah.
But that wraps it up. They're in the Great Valley. They all get reunited with their families. Littlefoot gets reunited with his grandparents, Sarah and her dad, Ducky and her family, Petrie his family, but they still kind of like play together and exist in this valley. I think this whole movie is a metaphor for the life cycle. It makes me wonder if these dinosaurs didn't make it. Littlefoot and his clan didn't make it, and the Great Valley is their afterlife. You can play with those ideas and themes because he opens the door for that through this movie. So you can look at it in different ways, but we could spend 2 or 3 hours dissecting all of that, and we're not here for that. We're here for the nostalgia to the adult purposes here. Andrew, watching this movie as an adult, how did you feel?
I mean, I watched it so many times as a kid, and before I watched last night, I was like, why? I wonder why I watched this that many times. Like, yeah, stupid kid brain. You obsess and focus in on things, but there's got to be a reason as to why I watched it and I get it. I understand it now. Why I loved it so much as a kid. It's a really good movie. It's nothing that's super complex or the dialogue isn't a work of art. But as an analogy, like there are certain musicians that make great songs but don't sing, but yet their music is sing as well, I should say. Their voice isn't that technically good, but yet they create great art. I kind of look at it this way, like no, it wasn't some crazy creative story with the greatest script, but it didn't have to be. I was happy. I was so happy that the things that I remember feeling as a child still carried over to this day when watching it 25 plus years later. It was pretty astounding. It was an emotional journey. Like I said, the memories came flooding back, the feelings, the sensations of when I was 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. Like I watching it last night, I was having visuals of like watching it in my old parents' bedroom or at the base of my trundle bed in my bedroom, sitting on like my grandfather pillow. Like it brought back visuals and colors and things that I hadn't really tapped into in years. And again, that was all because of this movie. And I guess my takeaway is that it's still powerful and still moving in so many ways. And I was floored and astounded that it did the job the same way that I remember it doing years ago.
Kyle,
Yeah.
what about you?
I mean, I don't really have much to add up than what Andrew said. Is very similar. I like to think of these. Would I watch this again, and would I show this to my children? Because this is something that we're talking about. Is our nostalgia? Was it good? Is it something that still holds up? To then review, watch, keep as a part of your life. This is very much something that is I think for a young person to watch the coming of age thing, even though this story isn't a coming of age tale. I think it's just pertinent. You have to learn about the uncomfortabilities of life because we're all racing towards the same red light, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is you can the qualms that I have with Disney movies a lot of times are that they gloss over death, which is such a big part of life to the point where I think people have an unhealthy relationship with death. And death is tough. Death is hard. Death is sad. Death is heartbreaking. But it's also beautiful. And it can also be something that is moving in a good way and inspiring. And I think we've really lost touch with that in our modern society to the point where we just can't even talk about death in general. And again, is death good? No, it's not good. But sometimes it's what's needed. Sometimes it's what has to happen. In fact, I would say all the time. Like the things that we have in common, everybody on this earth, is that we're all going to die one day. We're all born into this world. We're all going to die. And I think we focus way too much on the in between those two things and not enough on those two things, and especially not death. But death can be freeing. Death can be something that we can look forward to if you have a healthy relationship with it. And there's a lot of spirituality in this movie too. It's a very heavily spiritual movie. And a lot of it's like we talked about, like there's a lot of faith in here too. It doesn't talk about religion, doesn't talk about like an afterlife, but it very heavily plays on the idea of that. And like Chase said, like there is a world in which you could definitely paint this as they didn't survive, the young ones didn't survive their journey, but they all got to the same place at the end with people that they love. And I think that's a huge, amazing, beautiful story. A secondary story that you could go off of on this, even though I don't necessarily think that's what they were going for. I do think that this is something you could take away from it because when we die, I mean, I will say from what I've researched, and I know there's people, neurosurgeons and whoever else, probably neurologists that might disagree, but from what I've researched, when you are in the process of dying, your mind releases DMT because DMT is stored in your body naturally. And I don't know I've never done DMT. I don't usually talk about drug use on this podcast for a number of reasons, but I do know that it is a therapeutic drug and that it alters your mind. It alters your mind in the sense of it warps time. And people have felt like they've been on journeys for days, weeks at a time, when in reality only about 30 minutes has passed. So if you're dying on your under deathbed, and your brain is releasing all these chemicals before you die. If it's releasing these chemicals in quantities, we have no idea how much it's releasing. Isn't that what heaven could be? Is just your mind's way of just for an infinite eternity, just like Inception, where the deeper you go into the dream, the longer it is. What takes 10 seconds for us could be 1,000 years for somebody else. It's all relative. So I think that there is a very interesting way to look at this movie and look at what it's trying to teach, and that death is a part of life, and it's okay. It's okay for it to be sad. It's okay for it to seem natural, but it is natural. And you can run from death all you want to, but it will find you from one way or another, whether it be the sharp tooth, the earthquake, the tar. Like it's gonna come find you, but it doesn't have to be scary. And death can be a friend if you make it one. And that's what I got out of this movie watching it the second time. So very much something that holds up. I know we haven't talked about that yet, but it is something that holds up, and it is something I would definitely, for sure, show my children.
The audience knows what's coming. I mean, at this point, like,
100%.
No, well put, Kyle. I don't really have much to add to. I think you both just nailed it. I'll be vulnerable for a second. This isn't the first time I've watched this movie as an adult. What's weird is this movie's about death and life cycles, right? The last time I watched this movie, I was in my apartment in Nashville. And not to go into too much detail, but when I watched it, I remember thinking about that point in my life and the journey I'd taken to get there. I was in a relationship at the time. I had 2 dogs with me, and we all watched it together. Now, down the road, those dogs are no longer in my life, and, that was a relationship that I cherish, but it's no longer in my life as well. And now I'm watching this again in a different life cycle. And it just reminded me that life is long, and the journey can be way better than the end result sometimes, if you just kind of think about it. We learn as we go, and I think we're all gifted so many amazing moments, and don't rush going through it. Even the difficult parts, too, can end up being something that you really cherish down the road. So I think this is a movie you watch at certain points in your life to try to reflect on where you've been and where you're going. And that kind of hit me really hard. Kind of having all these memories flooding from not only watching this movie as a kid and who I developed as out of that childhood and that point in my life in Nashville, now this point in my life in Atlanta. And this movie kind of helps me see that like a kaleidoscope. So really emotional there for me. I think me and Andrew, we're not afraid to admit it. I think we both cried during this. Kyle, I don't know if you shed a tear, but
I'm not saying this to be an asshole. I think both of you know me really well. I've been through quite a bit in my life, and I just don't really, it just takes a lot. But like, I'm not going to lie, like I had a lump in my throat, and I was like, damn, this is like real. Like I felt it in my core. And like, that's, to me, that's the same thing as what y'all are describing in my life. That's like same thing. So yeah, I would say to equivocate it, yes.
But yeah, I mean, Andrew, does it hold up?
Oh, unequivocally, yes. Yeah. There are other childish movies that we have watched, or childhood movies, I should say, in the past that don't hold a candle to this. Holds up without a doubt.
Kyle, does it hold up?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say this was 1,000% holds up.
For a childhood movie to make us feel this way and talk this way, and to really scale back our complete existence and what it means, says so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is an episode where usually we goof around and we make jokes and whatnot, but this episode we got deep in the woods of, because this movie just opens that kind of dialogue between people, and I think it definitely holds up. And I think everyone who remembers this movie, who hasn't seen it in a while, go watch it and just put your phone away. It's hard these days to put your phone
Yeah.
away, but just spend an hour in this. It is almost like meditation, especially if you like really focus on it and not just think about like this is a movie I watched as a kid, but like really focus on like what this podcast was made for. What did it mean then? And what does it mean now? For me, it's meant something different each time I've watched it, which is absolutely incredible to think about. A piece of media that can evolve and age with you. How often do we see that? We don't. And so
Not very often.
that's my final thought on it. Andrew, what would you give it on IMDb?
I thought about this as soon as it was over. I was like, what am I going to give this? I'm going to give it a 7.8.
Okay.
I'm not going to put it in the 8s, but 7.8 is not a bad score.
No,
I
especially
think
for
it's
us. We've been kind of critical on some movies.
harsh. 7.8.
Kyle, what would you say?
I think just because the animation style at times wasn't as easy to like see or watch, I'm gonna have to go like a 7.6, I would say.
Okay.
But this is a very good movie.
I'm right there with you, Kyle. I was going to say 7.5. I think it's a little short. There's kind of the middle gets a little weird. It loses a little steam there. But for an hour-long film, the animation's great. The score's great. The overall meaning and the journey you go on is great. I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means. It's not going to stand up there with some of the best movies you've seen. But as far as like the feelings and the emotional side of things, it's definitely a 7.5 for me, which is high praise for me. Usually, like these movies don't get that far.
No.
Andrew, do you know what the actual score is?
7.4, which I actually was kind of surprised that it was that low. I was fully expecting it to be 7.9, 7.8, 7.7, but 7.4, which is still not bad.
Well, I
and
mean, think
all
about
things
what
considered.
we gave it. It's like right there. We're talking. I went 7.5, Kyle 7.6, you're 7.8. That's not. I mean, we're in the same ballpark.
Not far off.
Yeah.
Not far off at all.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up. You know what we do here? We reach into your prehistoric childhood, pull the movies from your past out. Today, we pulled out The Land Before Time. It's a masterpiece. Go watch that and let us know what you think because we are curious. Andrew, what are we doing next?
I think it's another dinosaur movie, Chase.
It is another
entitled
dinosaur movie.
We're Back, starring the great John Goodman.
We're going different direction next week. We're
Very
hitting
different.
We're Back, a dinosaur story. This one should be a lot of fun. In the meantime, you can follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, to see what is coming down the pipe. We hope that you go watch Land Before Time, and we will see you all next week.